No good deed goes unpunished. That's the lesson for Carson King this week, the young college football fan who happened to raise $1 million for children's charity must have his massive goodwill of today properly viewed in the context of bad words from his teenage years, such as the state of modern hard-hitting journalism. And the Des Moines Register, the paper responsible for this non-controversy, is defending its efforts in pursuit of the truth. The thing is, though, from a journalistic perspective, not all truth is created equal. The truth does have inherent value, sure. But what I mean is, a good journalist doesn't just splatter random truths all over the page like it's a piece of modern art. A good journalist assembles the facts in a logical, coherent, and comprehensive way for the consumer to form an opinion for himself. Just the truth is insufficient. A good journalist compiles the relevant truth and has the judgment necessary to make that distinction from the noise. More on that point that the Register is missing later, but first, let's recap how we got here. Carson King is a 24-year-old security guard from Altoona, Iowa, who was at the annual Iowa State football game in Ames on September 14th. Apparently short on cash, Carson held up a sign behind the set of College Game Day saying that his Busch light supply needs replenishing. Send him some money at his Venmo address. He received much more money than he needed, several $1,000s in fact, and so he announced he would buy one case of beer and donate the rest of the money to the Stead Family Children's Hospital in Iowa City. ESPN's Scott Van Pelt profiled the story, and donations increased even more. The viral campaign caught the attention of Anheuser-Busch and Venmo as well, who agreed to match Carson's donation. By last Monday morning, the combined commitments topped out at over $1 million, and Busch Light awarded Carson King a year's supply of beer, along with his own commemorative can, as an Iowa legend. And that's when the hard-hitting journalists at the Des Moines Register entered the story to make sure that all the crucial facts were being reported. A Register reporter doing a profile on Carson King reached out to Carson to ask him about racist tweets discovered on his Twitter page from 2012 when Carson was 16 years old. I can't even find the content of these tweets, they were deleted. But the reporter says there were two, one comparing black people to gorillas and another about black people killed in the Holocaust. Carson says these were quotes and references to a Tosh.0 bit, and he called a press conference to apologize for his horrible transgression.
I am embarrassed and stunned to reflect on what I thought was funny when I was a 16-year-old kid, and I want to sincerely apologize. It was brought to my attention by a reporter for the Des Moines Register, and once he pointed it out and I went back and looked at it, I was really upset with myself.
A transgression apparently so bad that the beer company had to step in to defend its moral integrity.
Here is the full statement from Anheuser-Busch. Carson King had multiple social media posts that do not align with our values as a brand or as a company, and we will have no further association with him.
What are your values? Being the preferred refreshment after a wife beating? Facilitating head-on collisions all across rural Iowa? Being the budget path to cirrhosis? Why are we taking a moral lecture from a piss water fountain instead of just celebrating a great moment of community bonding to fight a common social problem? And why are we taking a moral lecture from the Des Moines Register either, for that matter? That's a question that a lot of people asked, and so they started digging to see if the reporter responsible for this story lives up to his own standard. Because of course he doesn't, tweeting the N-word himself, though without the hard R if you're the sort of person who draws that distinction, making fun of gay marriage, saying fuck the NYPD and all cops generally, saying he wants to read sex scenes to high schoolers, among other now deleted tweets for which this reporter has ironically apologized, and he privated his account in case you'd like to try to find any more. The Des Moines Register is now saying that reporter is no longer with the paper, so perhaps he stepped aside, perhaps he was fired, it's not really clear. But all of the money, including the corporate donations, is still going to the Children's Hospital, so in the end, not that much has changed here, other than anecdotally, a lot of people are saying they're canceling their Des Moines Register subscriptions. But is there any question that serious mistakes were made here? Is there any question that this reporter and the paper's editors made serious errors in judging what information is relevant to this story and what information is just virtue signaling noise? Apparently, yes, if you ask the paper's executive editor, Carol Hunter, who published a piece in the paper on Thursday explaining the decision to publish information about these supposedly controversial tweets And it's clear that the paper hasn't learned a damn thing. We want to be transparent about what we did and why, she writes, immediately deflecting responsibility, saying Carson King, in fact, decided to go to local TV stations before the Register had published its story. She adds that Busch Light made its decision to dissociate independent of their news coverage. Yeah, but what prompted all of this? What prompted Carson King to host that press conference? What in turn prompted Busch Light to walk away? Was it your reporter reaching out saying, hey, I got some bad old tweets on you, care to comment? In such a scenario, wouldn't you prefer that people hear about it from you instead of some random slimy reporter? And besides, this timeline is much less important than the deeper question. Why is this information worthy of publication at all? Well, we do background work, she writes, to help our readers understand who is behind this viral piece of news. Journalists have a responsibility to look at news matters completely and to aid public understanding. After all, numerous charitable fundraisers have been exposed as fraudulent scams after media investigation. Right, but that's a fact that materially changes the substance of the story. If people donate to what they think is a children's hospital benefit, and it turns out the money is going to some other purpose, that's defrauding the public. Nobody donated to this cause because of Carson King's politics, or his views on race, or what jokes he made when he was a teenager. Nobody was deceived here. So again, that's a crucial error in judgment of what facts are relevant and what facts aren't. She totally misses the point of exposing her own reporter as well, saying the paper will revise its policies and practices to hold its own staff to the standards to which it held Carson King. The point is not holding everyone to the garbage standard you set with this story. The point is that your standard is garbage. Scouring the social media history of anyone in a public spotlight isn't news. It's hardly even tabloid. It's irrelevant. And it's a standard to which we will all fall. So no, it shouldn't be more uniformly enforced. It should be scrapped altogether. She closes totally undercutting her own case, saying, well, none of it really matters anyway. It didn't slow the fundraising. It didn't stop the donations from businesses. The base facts of the story remain the same, inadvertently admitting that this reporting is of no consequence to the story, so why bother publishing it at all, other than to malign a kid who I bet has raised more for charity as an individual than the Des Moines Register has as an entire business entity all year long. Not once does this piece address the fundamental issue that we started with, separating what's relevant from what's just noise. This editor seems to think that if a piece of information is true, it's proper journalism to report it. But why? If I covered this story and just sprinkled in random facts like the sky is blue and the grass is green and the Des Moines Register is better and cheaper bathroom tissue than name brand, yes, those things are facts. Yes, they are true. But do they add anything to this story? Are they relevant? Quality journalism scrutinizes relevance as harshly as it scrutinizes truth, and one without the other, relevance without truth, or truth without relevance, is useless and a disservice to the consumer trying to make sense of the situation. Until the Des Moines Register answers that relevance question, subscribers of the paper will ask their own, why in God's name am I paying for this crap? And if the demise of this journalistic malpractice gets accelerated and the kids still get their money, maybe this story isn't so terrible after all. Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel. Always appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below, and especially over on Twitter. That is at ML Christiansen. You're always welcome to coming out and chat in my live streams. Those are linked down in the description. Looking forward to it. Goodbye.